Welcome to episode 13 of Duties of the Heart. We are now in the final third of chapter 10 of the gate of the unity of God. And in the previous episode, we discussed various attributes of God and how God is described through scripture through various ways. And now we are going to concentrate on the physical senses, and that should complete this gate of the unity of God. And at the end of that, I'm going to give a summary of this gate that was written by Rabbi Yosef Sibag, whose book and commentary I'm using. It's an excellent book and commentary I'm using for this series. So, Rabbi Bachya begins. The physical senses. Each one of the physical senses has a distinct ability to perceive certain types of sensations which the other senses lack. For example, form and colour can only be perceived by the sense of sight. Voice and music can only be perceived by the sense of hearing. Scent and various odours only by the sense of smell. Various tasteable things only by the sense of taste. Hot and cold and many matters of quality by the sense of touch. Each sense has a power to perceive its relevant sensation to a definite extent, beyond which it is incapable of perceiving further. For example, sight has the ability to perceive something close by, and the further away one goes, the weaker its ability to apprehend it, until eventually it ceases to apprehend it completely. Likewise for the sense of hearing, and also for the other senses. And it is impossible to grasp a sensation without the appropriate sense designated for it. One who strives to grasp it with a different sense will fail to accomplish his desire. For example, one who strives to grasp a melody with the sense of sight, or visible things with the sense of smell, or taste with the sense of touch, he will not be able to find them or grasp them, despite that they exist, because one is trying to perceive them without the limbs designated for perceiving these sensations. Likewise, we will say for the mental faculties we mentioned, each one of them has a distinct power to perceive a specific thing which the others cannot, and the limits to which it can grasp no further, as we mentioned for the physical senses. Likewise, we will say for the mind, which grasps intellectual things itself, or through proofs. For things that are close to it, it will grasp its truth directly through itself, while for things which are remote and hidden, it will grasp it through building proofs which point to it. And since the Creator is infinitely remote and hidden from us, for us, from the side of His glorious essence, the intellect can grasp only that He exists. And if it strives to grasp God's glorious essence, or to imagine Him, even His existence will be hidden to it, because it strove to grasp something beyond its ability, as we mentioned for trying to grasp a sensation with the wrong sense. Therefore, we must seek the existence of God through the evidence of His deeds in the creations, and these will be proofs on Him for us. And when His existence is established for us in this way, we must then cease and not seek to liken Him in our thoughts, or to try to represent or figure Him in our imagination, or attempt to apprehend His glorious essence. For if we do this, thinking we will understand Him more closely, even the realization of His existence will disappear from us, because anything we imagine in our minds will be other than Him. And Scripture says, and he quotes from Mishlei 25 verse 16, "Have you found honey? Eat only as much as is sufficient for you, lest you be filled with it and vomit." So what the Rabbi Bachya is referring here to are the kind of study of the esoteric or hidden studies. And Chovot HaLevavot, a commentary on Duties of the Heart, will expand on this further. He says, this verse is an analogy on the study of the hidden, that one should learn or examine only until the limit he is capable of grasping, since otherwise he will vomit even that which he learns, and no emunah or faith will be left in him. And Rabbi Bachya continues, I saw fitting to try to bring the matter to close to you using two illustrations. The first of the two will demonstrate that each physical sense perceives its class of sensations and then it reaches its limit, whereby the next physical sense picks up where it left off. And afterwards it will also reach its limit and the next sense will start. And so on for all the senses. When they all reach their limit of perception, the intellect will then start to perceive what is in its power to apprehend. This will be demonstrated by means of one object. Imagine that a stone was thrown far away. It makes a whistling or crashing noise and strikes a man. The man perceived with a sense of sight the appearance of the stone and its form. Then he perceives with his sense of hearing the whistling or crashing noise. Then he perceives with his sense of touch the coldness and hardness of it. Afterwards, the physical senses cease to apprehend any more of the stone. Then the intellect perceives that the stone must have had a thrower who threw it, since it is clear to it that the stone did not move from its place by itself. That which is normally perceived through the physical senses cannot be apprehended by the intellect without the physical senses, and all the more so, that which is normally perceived by the intellect cannot be perceived by the physical senses. The second illustration will demonstrate that for spiritual matters, once we are convinced of their existence, it is not proper to investigate their nature because this approach only ruins our intellect. This is like one who tries to understand the sun from observing its light, radiance, shine, and its power to dissipate the darkness. If he accepts its existence, he will benefit from it, use its light, and attain all that he seeks from it. But one who strives to study its roundness and focuses his eyes to stare at it, his eyes will dim, and eventually their sight will be lost, and he will not benefit from the sun. The same thing will happen to us. If we study the existence of the Creator from the evidence of his signs of the creations, the wisdom manifested in them, his power shown in all his creations, we will think and we will understand his nature. Then our minds will be illuminated with knowledge of him, and we will attain all that is possible for us to attain, as it is written in Isaiah 48:17. I am the Lord your God, who teaches you for your benefit, who leads you by the way that you should go. But if we exert our minds to understand the matter of his glorious essence and to try to liken or represent him in our minds, we will ruin or diminish our intellect and understanding, and we will not grasp even what was known to us, as would happen to our eyes if we stared at the sun. We must be careful in this matter and remember it when we investigate on the matter of the existence of God. And now I'm going to bring some commentary from Marpei Lenefesh, another commentary on duties of the heart. And he says, as we find recorded in books, that most of the early philosophers became insane, as we see even in our generation. Those groups which go after their opinions and investigations, either they become crazy or they go out to evil ways. Perhaps this explains in Chagiga 14b, it says, Ben Zoma looked and was damaged, and Acher went out to evil ways. Regarding the four sages who entered paradise upstairs using holy names. This is the story of the four who went to paradise, Rabbi Akiva being the only one coming out at the end in peace. One must be careful and guard to not represent God with any likeness or form, God forbid. We must remember this in our investigations in this gate, when examining the matter of the existence of the Creator. We must also guard to not represent him or ascribe to him any kind of physical form. Likewise, the Guide to the Perplexed, written by Rambam, in part 1, chapter 35, where Rambam writes, just like it is necessary for the masses to realize and the young ones to be taught that God is one, and that one must not serve any other than him, so too it is necessary to educate them in this the way of tradition, that God does not have a body, and that there is absolutely no comparison in any way whatsoever between him and his creations. He then ends off with, even though they don't understand the reasons for the matter and don't know the logical proofs which establish the matter in the mind, just like you are not obligated to teach him by proofs that God exists, rather let them accept everything in the way of tradition, and afterwards, when they grow, the matter will be explained to them stage by stage according to their intellectual ability. And Rabbeinu Bachya continues, likewise, we must be careful regarding his attributes, whether those which describe his glorious essence or those the prophets describe to him, not to take them literally or according to what would seem in a physical sense. Rather, we must know clearly that they are metaphorical and incidental sense, according to what we are capable of grasping with our powers of recognition, understanding and intellect, due to our crucial need to know him and his loftiness. But he is infinitely greater and loftier above all of this. And like the verse says, blessed be your glorious name, that is exalted above all blessing and praise. That's from Nehemiah 9 verse 5. One of the philosophers said, he whose mind is too weak to understand the matter of divesting, he holds fast to the terms in the divinely given scriptures and does not realize that the terms in scriptures are adapted to the intelligence of those whom they were addressed, not according to the intelligence of the one who addressed them. Rather, they are like the whistling call to a herd of cattle at the time of water drinking, which brings them to drink far more effectively than clear and accurate words. When you master this level of the unity in your intellect and understanding, devote your soul to the Creator. Strive to grasp his existence from observing his wisdom, his power, his grace, his mercy, and his abundant providence over his creations. Become pleasing to him by doing his will. Then you will be amongst the seekers of gods, of who it is written in Mishlei 28:5, those who seek God will understand all. And then you will receive from him the help and strength to understand him and to know his true nature. As King David said in Psalms 25:14, the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. I will clarify for you some illustrations in the second gate of this book. When you practice them and go in their path, the matter will be easier for you with God's help. And now we are going to discuss things that are detrimental. Rabbeinu Bachya continues, the things detrimental to the wholehearted acceptance of God's unity are numerous. Among them, to association of other beings with the Creator. This occurs in several ways. Amongst them, believing in multiple gods or worshipping forms, the sun, the moon, constellation, fire, plants or animals. Amongst them, ascribing physicality to the Creator while understanding the true intent of Scripture. Among them, hidden association, namely trying to find favour with other people with regard to religious matters. This occurs in several ways. I will clarify them in the fifth gate of this book with God's help. Amongst them, turning excessively to physical pleasure. This is subtle association, that a man associates the service of his lusts with the service of the Creator. And the verse says, and he's going to quote from Talmud Shabbos 105b, there shall be not in you a strange God. And our Chachamim expounded this, saying, what is a strange God? Which is in the body of man. This is the Yetzer Hara, or evil inclination. Perhaps the simple and foolish person, when he reads this book and considers what we wrote in this gate, he will say to himself, will the matter of the unity of God be unknown to anyone who reads even one page of the Torah, whereby this author needs to stir us and instruct us it? I will answer this as the wise man answered. And he quotes Mishlei 26:5. Answer a fool according to his folly. For one who asks this is too weak of understanding to grasp the extent of a universal topic which is addressed to different classes of people. Such a universal topic is grasped differently depending on whether the person understood much of it or little of it, and whether he is of strong intellect or of weak intellect. The analogy to this, the benefit of the light of the sun, which is universal to all men, we find this benefit divides into three classes. The first class, those whose eyes are healthy and free from all diseases. They benefit from the sun, use its light, and attain all types of benefit from it. The second class, the totally blind, whose eyesight is completely lost. The light of the sun does not damage nor benefit them. Their benefit from it is through other people who guide them. The third class, people whose eyes are too weak to tolerate the light of the sun, and the sun's light will damage them if they don't avoid it. If they hasten to heal their eyes with medications or potions or therapeutic diets, and at the same time are careful not to expose their eyes to the light of the sun, it is possible that they will become healthy and they will benefit from the sun which was previously damaging to them. But if they delay healing their eyes, they will quickly lose their eyesight completely and belong to the class of the totally blind. Similarly, the classes of understanding God's unity taught in the Torah divides into three classes. The matter is taught to all rational beings, just like the light of the sun is available to all seeing beings. The first class, these are men of clear intellect and pure understanding. The second class, men whose intellect is completely too weak to understand anything of what is written in the Torah. And the third class, men whose intellect is too weak to grasp what the first class is able to grasp, but they have sufficient intelligence to comprehend most of the near and easy matters. The first class, namely the men of complete intellect, free from all detriment, when they put to heart to understand what they encountered in the Torah on the matter of the unity, they will understand it, and its matter will enter their heart through their powerful understanding and pure intellect. They are of those who don't need this book, except to remind them of what has escaped their attention. The second class do not know God's Torah, all the more so the matter of unity in it. They hear its teaching but do not comprehend its matter. They will have neither benefit nor damage from this book. The third class who understand the matter of the unity mentioned in God's Torah with some understanding, but they don't have the intellectual power to understand its matter and realize its true meaning. If a teacher instructs them and makes them understand its matter through the way of true proofs and sound intellectual reasoning, its meaning will become clear to them, and its secret will be revealed to them, and they will reach the level of the first class. But if they shirk from investigating and are lazy in examining in that which will strengthen their understanding and sharpen their intellect, they will sink to the level of the foolish. To those of this class, this book will be of great and comprehensive benefit because they are capable of investigating. It will benefit them just like potions benefit those with weak eyesight, whose hope to be healed by their application. Scripture already compares the foolish man to a blind man, wisdom to light, and foolishness to darkness, in saying, from Ecclesiastes 2 verse 13, "Then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as far as light excels darkness." And also from Ecclesiastes 2:14, "The wise man's are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness." And from Yeshaya 42 verse 18, "Hear, you deaf, and look, you blind, that you may see." As they compared wisdom and Musar to a tree of life, which a man eats from and lives forever, as it is written in also Mishlei, Proverbs 3 verse 18, "It is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon it." And also from Proverbs 4:22, "For they are life unto those that find them." And he concludes this gate, "May the Almighty teach us the way to knowledge him, direct us to his service, and bestow on us his grace and his mercy and compassion. Amen." So that completes this gate, the gate of unity of God. And now let's give a brief summary to this gate by Rabbi Yosef Sibag. So let's begin. By understanding the theological proof that God must exist, we will automatically get an introduction to God. Although it is impossible for us to understand him directly, nevertheless we can at least understand to some small extent what he is not. Now, the logical proof of God is based on three premises. Number one, a thing cannot make itself. Number two, causal chains cannot be infinite in number. Number three, anything composite is not eternally existing. Regarding the first premise, it is self-evident that something which is totally non-existent cannot do anything. If it does something, then it is already existing. If you ask physicists find particles or quantum fluctuations which appear and disappear in empty space, answer, as they explained in chapter 5, the particles do not pop out of nowhere. They are consequences and properties of pre-existing space-time, of a pre-existing space-time medium governed by pre-existing laws of quantum mechanics. Thus, they are not at all coming from absolutely nothing. Regarding the second premise, causal chains cannot be infinite in number. This means you cannot explain the existence of an egg by saying there is an infinite regress of chicken, egg, and so on endlessly. Another analogy, if we have a room of parallel mirrors with infinite reflections of a human face, you can't reasonably explain the existence of the faces in the mirror by saying there is no source face and they are all just reflections of each other. In reality, there must exist a source, a real human face, otherwise nothing would be reflected in the mirrors. Hence, according to these two premises, to explain the effect of the existence of the universe requires us to conclude that something exists which is eternal, without beginning. Now the question is, what can be eternal? The third premise states that anything composite cannot be eternal, without beginning. The eternal, by definition, cannot have anything preceding it. So, for example, dough needs flour and water to exist. Therefore, dough cannot be eternal since its existence depends on the pre-existence of flour and water. What about something like an electron or a photon or even space-time? These things are composite in a subtler sense. They are composites of themselves and their boundaries, limitations, properties. For example, an electron has position, spin, charge, mass, momentum, energy, etc. Therefore, it is a composite of itself and whatever boundaries, limitations or properties were set on it. Therefore, it is a composite of two matters. Number one, its own existence, and number two, from the aspect that which it must have a cause which set its boundaries, properties or limitations. It has to be a result of a previous something that either made or shaped or defined it, something which caused its borders or its properties, etc., to be what they are. For example, a video game has certain characters, each one having certain properties, abilities, or position on their screen. These things must have been set by a computer programmer. They cannot just exist eternally without beginning. Hence, the only thing that can be eternal without beginning is that which has no properties or limitations in any way. It is completely infinite and boundless in all respects. It has no parts or boundaries. This is a completely different kind of existence than anything we are familiar with. Anything else which has some sort of limitation or property cannot be eternal. This automatically rules out anything physical or more than one eternal, and leaves only the one God. He is one in an absolute sense. Obviously, we have no way whatsoever of comprehending such an infinite existence, but we can know for sure that the eternal must exist, otherwise we would not be here. By studying the world with this outlook, we can learn about the eternal. Once this is clear, it follows that prophecy is necessary for God to tell us what this is all about, and this leads us to the first and foremost book on prophecy, the Torah. So, amazing commentary there from Rabbi Yosef Sibag, and that should summarize this, the first gate, the gates of the unity of God, and I look forward to entering the next gate, the gate of reflection, in the next episode.